I should be recording. Here we go. And we're going to start off with something. We're going to start off just reviewing the goals for this whole ecology unit. So you're going to, by the end of all of this, be able to talk about how matter and energy move through an ecosystem. And you've seen this every single chapter in this unit. You don't need to copy this. We're just going to talk about it. You're also going to look at why one place has got a bunch of living things and one place has nothing. So how distribution and abundance are limited by the ability of the ecosystem to move materials and by how much material there is to move and how much energy there is. And we're also going to look at, and this is a big one we come up with in this chapter, how energy gets stored. You are all storing energy right now in multiple forms in your bodies. How that energy gets lost, how it gets transferred. Many of you transferred some energy at lunch. If a saber-toothed tiger were to come in and consume one of you in a predatory relationship, you would transfer some of that energy to the saber-toothed tiger. I think the odds of that happening are pretty low.
Are they extinct?
Yes. That's one reason they're pretty low. Besides that, we don't seem to have a big problem with large predators in the halls here. It's very fortunate. That would be a whole different experience, huh, going from class to class. I imagine we wouldn't have a lot of tardies. How would you behave differently if there were large predators roaming the hallways and you might be eaten between here and, say, English 10?
And ride it to class.
Well, I'm not sure that'll work. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about transferring matter and energy, and hopefully we're not going to transfer much of your matter for quite a long time. Okay, so what you already know. Every living thing needs energy, and you already know that. You also know that every different living thing has a different way of getting the energy they need, so you can copy that as needed. Okay, so plants we've got. We know what plants are. If I hand you something, most of you, I think, at this point in your life can tell me, yeah, that's a plant, or no, that's not a plant. The algae, the protists part, is different. So a lot of these things are one-celled. They are unicellular. And if you've ever been on a pond that looked like this, full of, what do you call that? What are names that people refer to a pond that's got a surface that's entirely green? Well, okay, swampy areas very often have that kind of green surface. If you walk out to a pond or a lake and you see a bunch of green stuff on the surface, very often it's called pond scum. Ah, there's a bunch of pond scum there. Or, yeah, it's all full of algae, okay? Those are actually little tiny, tiny, tiny organisms. And it looks green because they're able to make their own food. They're photosynthesizing. And the chemical that plants use to photosynthesize is what, do you know? You probably had this before, but we haven't said it explicitly. It's called chlorophyll, and it's green. So when something is green, that's a pretty good hint that it's probably able to make its own food. So a surface of a pond that's green like that is covered in little protists, little algae. If you go out, Salem Reservoir used to be terrible. I don't know if anybody's been out there fishing. But if you had taken a clear glass and dipped it in the reservoir and held it up to the light, it would be sort of like greenish brown. And that was all kinds of algae. Just all kinds of little protists, little single-celled things. This picture here is a protist. That's called a volvox. I always thought that would be a great name for a band. Volvox. And it's a teeny little microscopic organism. If you've gone swimming in a pond and you've accidentally swallowed some water, you've probably eaten a volvox or two. They're in, they'd be in Salem Reservoir, Guilford, Highlandtown, any farm pond near you, along with a whole bunch of other little tiny things. You can't see these with the naked eye. You have to look under a microscope. If you have a pond at home or you have neighbors who have a pond, we'll do a thing with microscopes here, and we'll look at what's in a sample of pond water. You'd be amazed. And you'll either never swim in a pond again, or you'll be like, cool, I'm in the middle of a protist party. Because it's full of this stuff. So, algae, protists are the other class of photosynthetic organisms. So we have the first big group, the second big group. The third big group is the one that people usually forget about, bacteria. So you know that you're covered in bacteria, right? Have I mentioned this once or twice or 23 times? Okay. So let me say it again. You're covered in bacteria, inside and out. Every single square centimeter of your body, inside and out, your gut, all your everything, covered in bacterial cells. There are more bacterial cells in and on you than your own cells. So bacteria far outnumber all the other things in the world. Now, a very, very few very special bacteria are able to produce their own food. They are autotrophs. Most bacteria aren't. This is important. You should write this down. Most bacteria are not autotrophs. But some percentage of bacteria are autotrophs. They are producers. It's a minor little slice. Do you think that the bacteria on your skin are autotrophs?
No.
Are you green? No. Then probably not. Because if you were covered in photosynthetic bacteria, you'd look like you got dipped in a bucket of green paint. It'd be pretty cool, but, well, it depends on your definition of cool, I guess. I would think it was neat. You know, and you could go out in the sunlight and feed your bacteria.
It'd be so awkward.
Yeah, you know, taking my bacteria for a walk. Okay, so if an organism is capable of producing its own energy, it's a producer. We call them autotrophs, 3 major kinds: plants, protists or algae, and some, not all, but some bacteria, some very, very special bacteria. Okay, so the producers in an ecosystem capture energy from the sun and make sugar chemicals with it. Some of the sugar is used for energy to run their cells. Some is used to build their own bodies. Thing in this ecosystem is grabbing energy, it's making chemicals. What does it do with all those chemicals? Those chemicals are stored forms of energy, and the big one is sugar. And the sugar that most producers make is C6H12O6. That's right, glucose. Simple sugar. If you have anybody in your home, if you have a parent, a sibling, an elderly relative who is diabetic, they probably have glucose tablets always nearby, so that if they have too much insulin and not enough sugar in their system, that's the form that your cells use. And so you can pop a glucose tablet in and, you know, it brings you back to rights. That's what all these organisms are manufacturing at the base. Now, they use that glucose and they build other chemical ways to store their energy. So if we look at this first example, what are those?
Potatoes.
Potatoes! The lovely spud. Were there any potatoes on the lunch menu today? No, it's a rare day where we don't have potatoes, but no potatoes. So potatoes, how many of you have grown or seen potatoes growing? Okay. Real easy. You stick a potato in the ground, and it grows a whole new plant, and it grows more of those tubers. And is the potato growing those for you?
Yes.
No. The potato doesn't care if you live or die. The potato is growing those big fat tubers as a way to store energy. If you leave that whole bunch of potatoes in the garden over winter, each one of those is going to store energy, and it's going to grow a whole new potato next year. And you don't even enter into the picture. You don't enter into the equation. Now, we happen to have selected potatoes that grow really nice, fat, really tasty tubers, and we eat them. But it's just storing energy. And that's the body parts. It's in the form of carbohydrates. Carbs are a big word we hear a lot nowadays. Carbohydrates are just complex sugars. So sugar, well, it's all kinds of sugars, simple and complex. Those potatoes are a stored carbohydrate. It's great fuel for you, for me. So we've got tomatoes, same thing. Grabbing chemicals, making energy. Building their own bodies with it. Hey, we're not done yet. They're released early. The bell hasn't even rung. So the tomato plant is grabbing all that energy through its leaves, every green part of it, and it's not only building new stems and leaves, it's building fruit, which is its reproductive strategy for next year. It's putting sugar into that tomato. Sugar. Wonderful stuff. We love it. It's building all of that. Can you tell what that one is? It's wheat. It's wheat, actually. You probably did have some wheat today at lunch. They had breadsticks. They probably, I don't think they were whole grain. But, again, the wheat is grabbing solar energy. It's making sugar. It's putting together bunches of those sugar until it gets more complex carbohydrates. And that's the body it's building. The lettuce is grabbing energy, building carbohydrates. We don't think of lettuce as being high in carbohydrates. Of course, it's got carbohydrates. Its cells are made of carbohydrates. And then this one, I wanted to make sure I included something that humans don't normally eat. What is that? It's an acorn. Yeah, it's an acorn. It's an oak tree. The oak tree, grabbing chemical energy, building its body, storing that energy. How many here have a wood stove at home? Okay. Fireplace. How many of you have ever seen something on fire? Okay. Bonfire, trash fire, I don't care what it was. You've seen something burning. Guy I used to work with who was another science geek, as we're all sitting around a bonfire one afternoon, said, all that solar energy coming back at once. That's what it is. Next time you sit around a bonfire, say that. People will think you're weird. It's fun. But think about it that way. What are you doing? You're releasing stored solar energy. I'll see you tomorrow. Or Friday. I think tomorrow. I think I'll have 2 hours away tomorrow.
Oh, it's supposed to be like 17 below.
I'm looking at that's not what weather.com is saying. That's what Mr. Soderbeck's saying.
It was a exaggeration.
4th. Go to 4th period. Yeah, it's confusing. It's easy for me because I'm staying here. I just have to figure out who's coming in.
Nice.
Well, you know what? If you have never had a little clumsy accident, then you are free to use sarcasm on Thomas. I personally knock things over and drop them all the time. Thank you for helping me. Some days. Good afternoon. How are you? Confused?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's
Where did you want these?
Lab.
in the box.
What box?
The biology box.
But there's nothing in it.
Is there any what? I wonder if it was done before you walked in here.
So, like, paragraphs and there is not. Just take it.
Somewhere.
We do want the labs today.
Are. But we don't have to.
We only have 29 minutes.
I know.
Let's go.
So, I'm not sure. You already have the lab,
Yeah.
right?
I wasn't here Monday.
Okay, then no, you don't. Did you watch the video?
No. These children, they never learn.
No, some of them do. Some of them do.
Oh, mine's my walker.
That's a stuff.
What?
Stapler. I don't know where. Go good luck.
I would go Google.
Can I go get it?
If you can be back for the building.
Oh, my left pack is small.
An epidemic.
I thought I had everything right. Can I go to this one?
Well darn.
So,
Did you say our lab for you today? I was going to grab mine, but then I realized, okay,
Are we able to do this today?
not today. We're just starting.
divided by.
I was like, I don't know if they was already
Students, please excuse interruption. any Career Center student that is not normally here for fourth period, please report to the gym at this time. Thank you.
I have no idea. Something to do with the
Oh, you could turn it in yesterday, did you?
No, we weren't here yesterday.
I don't know if you know about that go through on the schedule, but I was a doctor. He was here for 10 minutes a day, and then he paddled like crazy, and he got a D, and then they got a gold. Yeah.
How did he make you like
He's in, I gave him a job. I'm pretty sure you know.
Yeah.
Where is that? It was bad. Huh?
Why didn't he get out at the beginning?
Oh, it's complicated. Okay, so you've got your lab packet. I apologize, I have here. Oh, crap. Well, that was running for far longer than it should have been for all of that blank time. You can just assume the video ended a long time ago, but you're hearing this. Okay, we'll pick this up tomorrow. Bye.